ladies and gentlemen, there are many people still not working in this country. Many are furloughed, and many do not know what their future will bring. Some jobs are simply never, ever coming back. So, this came out on CNBC August 15th, 2020. It's nerve wracking. Millions of Americans are still furloughed and unsure when they will return to work. When Matthew Aldrich was furloughed in March from his job as a server at La Pizza in La Pasa, um, this is in Manhattan. He was unhappy, but he felt hopeful. At least he wasn't laid off, he thought, and it would eventually get to where, he thought he was going to go back to the restaurant and start working again and earn even more money. Well, that didn't happen. So he said he really liked his job. This is a 37-year-old man. I was able to put away a lot of money over the last 2 years. We were saving to buy an apartment. He spent his newly open days bringing Netflix and reading and watching. I mean, what can you do? You're just sitting there and you're not doing everything, anything with your life. So after a while, people start feeling hopeless. So, if the Great Recession was marked by mass layoffs and people walking out of their office building with boxes, the pandemic's recession will trigger memories of people being furloughed and then sitting at home anxiously awaiting to return to their jobs. More than 18 million workers were on furlough in April, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Google searches for what does furlough means exploded that month. After all, the previous record was in 1982 was 2.5 million people. Companies have furloughed workers, including Tesla, Gap, Macy's, Marriott, Best Buy, and Disney. And no kind of worker has been immune. Even lawyers and doctors have been placed on temporary absences. It's something companies do when there's a sudden thing they weren't prepared for. And that's certainly this, which is COVID-19. John Sullivan said, a professor at the San Francisco State University. All right. And he actually did a study on furloughs. Prior to the public health crisis, furloughs, a term that derived from the Dutch verlof, meaning leave of absence, were mostly associated with government shutdowns in the private sector. There were rare, that term is really not used quite as much in the private sector. During the Great Recession, fewer than 1% of employees were furloughed, compared to 1 in 5 who were let go, said Sandra Sucher, a professor of management practice at Harvard Business School. The recent flood of furloughs could be a positive sign, said Keith Hall, a professor at Georgetown University and a former commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The expectation in the Great Recession was it was going to last a very long time, so there weren't many furloughs, Hall said. Despite the pandemic, companies are hoping to get back in business pretty quickly. Indeed, the number of furlough workers has already dropped to 9 million. Okay. Over the last 2 months, Hall said, all of the job growth we'd had before the great pandemic, folks were reemployed. Of course they were. It was really not too much going on. And there are clear advantages to a furlough compared to a layoff. Beyond the hope that you'll return to work, many employers continue to pay for their workers' health insurance during their leave. Furlough workers can also typically receive unemployment benefits. Lindsay Hansen of Sunderland is optimistic she'll be called back to her job as a marketing assistant. In Park City, Kansas, well, perhaps you will, perhaps you won't, you know, but there are a lot of people that are going to be out of work for years. Okay, there's no prospect of their job calling them back. And even if these folks get called back, ladies and gentlemen, you see how fast many of these places that reopened had to shut down and disinfect and do this, and look at the schools. You're just going to have the same scenario for these furlough employees. Once they get back to working, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to have to shut down again. Overall, the majority of firms were either unsure about when workers would return or did not expect all workers to return. To cut labor costs during the recession, companies are looking to speed up their automation efforts. Um, that may increase the number of furloughs that turn into layoffs. I'm surprised many of them haven't so far. Okay, furlough workers in certain industries are probably less likely to return, Sullivan said. Everybody loved movie theaters, but you have to look at the environment and ask, are there some that aren't going to make it? He said, furlough title doesn't mean anything if the industry has gone to hell. The pandemic's pain clearly isn't evenly distributed. Nearly half of retail companies reported using temporary layoffs, compared to just 3% of financial services firms. Okay, Amanda Collins was furloughed from the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts for close to 4 months when she was officially laid off. I'm really disappointed. I was quite certain I'd be back to work by now, Collins, 39, said. As a result, she didn't bother looking for other IT jobs. I was really, really frustrated. Normally, when I have a layoff, I can start looking for work. Many of the positions that are available now will require taking a large pay cut, she said. Even if a furlough worker tries to find another job, they may run into many challenges. The hiring manager may assume the worker will leave when he or she is called back to their old job. Why would I get you up to speed if I know you're going to leave me? At the same time, if someone's been on furlough for too long, an employer might assume their skills aren't up to date. You don't want to say you've been sitting around, Sullivan said. Furlough employees face adverse psychological effects. When people are laid off, there's a sense of closure. They know what the next step is. During a furlough, each day brings uncertainty and questions like, can I go back to work or will I lose my job? Unfortunately, these negative employee reactions can last months beyond the end of the furlough. I was very hopeful. I definitely felt like I was in less dire strait than many others. I thought when all this ends, I won't have to go through trying to get rehired. That's why I'm so stressed now. Yeah, because the realization that you may not be going to work is setting in. So, ladies and gentlemen, some people are laid off, some are furloughed, some are just fired. They know they have no job at all, and they're really in a position where they have to lean on unemployment and whatever stimulus money they can get, because the opportunities out here are very limited. And I was looking at some of them. The salaries are not going to be what people were making before. And see, whenever there's a recession and they start hiring again, that's going to be their excuse. Well, we can't give you any more money because the country's in a recession. That's going to be what you're going to be told. You're not going to see nowhere near what you were making before. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.